Hi, everybody.
Hey.
It's good to be back. We have a guest tonight, Odd Daughter. It's been a long time since we've had her.
Yeah.
So let's give everybody a little bit of time to get in here, and let the audience build. Hi, little bit. How are you? And yeah, there's a lot of our viewers nowadays that doesn't know who Odd Daughter is. Odd Daughter and me used to do a show over on the Mother De La Morte page or the Odd Mother page some time back. So it's been a while, and we're so glad to have her. So let's see what is going on. How's everybody been? We've had a busy week. So
Yeah.
our daughter finished school for the summer, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
We're really excited about that. So yeah, and somebody's got the hiccups. Hi, Kisa. How are you?
Hi.
And guys, if you would please share out. Um, Facebook is making it a lot more difficult on pages that do have a good organic reach because it messes with their algorithms and things like that because they would rather the pages pay to play. And that's not how we originally started out here on Facebook. So it's kind of like changing the rules and seeing how many hoops they can get each person to jump through. So please share this out. Share this out to your groups. Definitely don't get in trouble for spamming, but share this out to your group. Share it out to people in DM that you think might be interested. We've got a really cool subject tonight. We've covered some other things that are very similar, but this is a little bit different. And this, I think, has to be some of my favorite types of stories that fall in this genre. So if you guys are ready, we'll go ahead and we'll get started. There's no house cleaning today, so we're just going to get right into this. So in the early 1900s, a well-traveled man arrived in Tokyo for a business trip, but he had a problem. Though fluent in several languages and in possession of a variety of international currencies, the man found himself marooned in the wrong country. Why? Because his passport and driver's license tied him to a country called Torrid, which doesn't exist. The man went back and forth with authorities for hours, utterly confused and initially convinced that he was the victim of an elaborate practical joke. The man claimed to work for an international conglomerate that frequently did business with Japan. Yet the hotel he's supposed to have had reservations and been staying in did not have his registration. And his passport observed citizenship to the nation of Torrid. Additionally, his checkbook contained checks linked to an account with a bank that doesn't exist. Local law enforcement, vexed and eventually frightened by the situation, put the man up in a hotel for the night until his identity could be ascertained. The next day, he was gone without a trace. Even the documents of his that had been confiscated by the police were missing. So, Odd Daughter, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, tonight, we are talking about.
Can you see?
Yes. Tonight we are talking about time shifts, unlike time slips. Time slips are when we move through time, but in our reality. Time shifts are when we shift into another reality.
Yes, also known as quantum entanglement. And these are really cool stories. Now, most of these stories we got off Reddit because we wanted the first person. The first person are always the funnest. So that's what we've got for you guys tonight. We do have one that falls maybe a wee bit into the time shift category, but most of these are going to be what is called quantum entanglement or reality shifts or time shifts, to where you actually, people have found themselves shifted into an alternate reality or dimension.
Yeah, spooky.
Very spoofy, exactly, very spoofy. So let's see what's going on in the comments real quick, and then we're going to get started. So let's see what's going on in the chats here.
Probably like 20% people.
Oh, so we've got Otis. Hey, Otis, how are you? And yes, Kisa, it is good to see our daughter. I'm so happy she's joining us tonight. Hi, Calvin. And a little bit says Otis is her Darth father. I am your father, Luke. Let's see. Hi, Maud. How are you? Hi, Chaos. So Chaos says, hey, Chaos and Squeak and Kelly are watching.
Hey.
Hello. Thank you for sharing. Hi, Lewis. How are you? Hi, John.
One of them said that the last episode show that they saw with me was the baking bread episode.
Yes, the baking bread episode. That's right. That was right around Christmas. And then we have Benderoy. Hey, Benderoy, how are you?
Wasn't that the cookie one?
That was the cookie one. It was.
Bread.
All right. So let's pop out of here and we will get started. Okay. And look, my thumb was all up in everybody's face. Okay. So like I said, these are going to be from the first person category, which always makes them a little better, I do think. So the first one starts. In the event, I'd like to tell you about what took place quite a few years ago, in the early 90s. Somehow I've managed not to think about it for all this time. Recently, however, following somewhat of a crisis in my life, I started to realize how fundamentally strange this experience really was, and how deeply it actually affected me. I'll try to provide as much detail as I can, possibly drag from my memory. So bear with me if my account seems winded and over pragmatic. As far as I remember, my story took place in early July of 1993. I was 18 years old at the time and worked for the summer at a civic department of the smallish county Mjölby. Apparently, he's from Sweden, doing mainly street and park maintenance. Me and a coworker had finished work for the day, pruning hedges and mowing lawns in a remote community some 10 miles away from our home office. Where on our way back, the road we were driving along went through a quite rural area, fields and scattered bits of pine forest. There were only a few separated farmhouses and cottages along the road, which is the only tarmac road in that area. All roads that connected with it along that stretch are either gravel roads or dirt paths. That summer alone, we must have driven along that road at least 100 times, so we knew it quite well by that time. After driving approximately 5 to 7 kilometers along the road, my coworker happened to notice that we were running low on gas, which tends to be how a lot of these things tend to happen.
It's like the time shifts. You're like, well, you have gas now, mine.
Yeah. So now you need to stop for gas. Yeah.
Maybe it's
part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see. So in fact, the needle of the gauge, which is talking about what you were saying, didn't even move from its bottom position. The car still running smoothly. We doubted we could run on petrol fumes for another 10 kilometers or so. At this point, we had entered one of the few places along the road where it was flanked by woods on both sides. The car was equipped with a long wave radio, so we were discussing whether to radio the home office in case we got stranded and needed some gas brought to us. In the end, however, we decided to keep on driving as long as possible, just in case the gas we had would be enough to take us home. Come to think about it, I seem to remember that stretch of road lay in some type of radio shadow. The regular radio stations always broke up at some point along the road, although I can't remember if we had the radio on this particular occasion. Anyway, we kept on driving for a few more minutes when suddenly we came upon a small collection of buildings on the side of the road. A farmhouse in a pretty dilapidated condition, covered with grubby Evernet plates, which are kind of like the asbestos plates that you see on some of the really old houses. They look almost like shingles, but they're on the side of the house.
Weird.
Yeah. In front of the house, right up against the edge of the tarmac of the road, sat a long shed-like structure covered in corrugated metal plate and roofed with tar paper. On the short end of the shed, facing away we were coming from, was an old orange striped gas pump. Set into the side of the shed was an open door, a large, grimy window cluttered with cans of motor oil and other stuff. In this window hung a large plastic sign simply saying gas. As I mentioned, we both traveled along this road many times, but never noticed this strange looking gas station before. However, there were no like feelings of like dread or anything like that, of strangeness or anything along those lines. We simply wrote it off as a trick of the mind that neither of us had seen it before or had thought about it earlier. After all, sometimes you fail to notice mundane things until you are actively searching for them. I certainly didn't reflect much over it at the time, just feeling relieved that we'd be able to get some gas and get home. We stopped alongside the gas pump, and after finding the mechanism locked with a padlock, I went inside to find whoever ran the place. Inside was a small, square room bisected by a counter, behind which stood shelves with oil cans, bottles of car wax, etc. Even though there was only one window, the area was pretty brightly illuminated by a naked fluorescent lamp. And this is going to be something that you see in a lot of these like dimensional shifts. Is that
maybe they is the same reality? It's just
maybe, but there seems to be a tendency to where everything looks either pale or grimy or faded.
Maybe
or
their eyes are just not used to that dimension.
It could be. It could be. It really could be. As there was no one inside, I called, hello, or something. And after a while, a strange little guy emerged from a door in the back of the wall. In retrospect, I set his age at about 60 or 70, but he could have been somewhat younger, I suppose. When you're 18, you have a tendency to simply label anyone above 50 as old, I guess. I distinctly remember he had a brownish Greek fisherman's cap on, and that he had those Coke bottle glasses with thick rims of black plastic. His eyes were magnified to at least twice their natural size by the lenses. I seem to remember he was dressed in black and white shirt and beige pants held up by suspenders or bracers, as they call them. You got the impression that there had been a long time since he had bathed, as what little hair you could see looked pretty greasy, and his clothes were all grubby and wrinkled.
Disgusting.
Yeah. I told him something along the lines that we needed to buy some gas, and he just looked at me for an uncomfortably long time. So I thought he hadn't understood what I said. I started to repeat myself, but he cut me off, pretty curtly, after a few words, with a kind of rapid, stuttering manner of speech. Either my memory betrays me, or I've never heard just what he said to cut me off. Probably with something like, yes, yes, mumble, mumble. and nodding in a very exaggerating way as he talked. He started to rummage around beneath the counter, still muttering indistinctly under his breath, and finally produced a key on a piece of string.
Sounds like a crazy man.
I know, spooky, doesn't it? Very Chainsaw Massacre-y. It's a big nope gas station. With the key he held out and up on a straight arm in a really odd gesture. He came out from behind the counter with some speed and pushed past me through the door. He had this strange sort of lurching kind of locomotion. Anyway, he unlocked the pump and we drew perhaps 150 SEKs, which would be, I guess, liters really, worth of gas, which took a long time since the pumps were ancient and weak. The old guy stood and looked on, all the while rocking from side to side.
Weird.
Mm-hmm. Almost like he had some motor, like motoral type of dysfunction or something. My friend and I just sort of looked at each other several times, not knowing what to make of this guy. Once the car was filled, we pooled our loose change and just piled it in the hands of the old guy until he seemed satisfied. Once he'd put the money away in his pocket of his pants, we withdrew a wad of blank receipts from a breast pocket, filled one out very carefully with a ballpoint pen, and handed it over. My friend took it. Oh, so he filled it out. My friend took it without a word and put it in his wallet. He said goodbye, got into the car, and left rather quickly. While we were turning onto the road once again, the old guy walked out to the edge of the tarmac, waving both hands in the air as we drove away. When we drove away, I leaned forward and looked in the side mirror, seeing him in the distance, still waving and rocking to and fro. Yeah, very robotish. You see a lot of robotish types of like actions and stuff.
It's a dimension where the robots are
I don't
taking over the world.
I don't know. Kind of like it only exists when you're there or something. Very, very Twilight Zone-ish. He didn't really speak a lot. We didn't really speak a lot on the way home, but there was no feeling that something was amiss or anything. The only strange thing that happened was that the car started to run very raggedly just a few kilometers after leaving the gas station.
Probably old gas.
We're going to find out. The engine misfiring in a manner it does sometimes when one or more cylinders fail to ignite. We commented on it and said that the old guy probably gave us diesel instead of 96 octane petrol. Indeed, the car's exhaust gradually turned into a thick black smoke screen trailing behind us, like it does when you pour diesel into a petrol car. By the time we arrived at our home office, the car coughed and sputtered constantly, so we took it to the civics department repair shop, by now convinced that we had been sold diesel instead of petrol, and rather pissed because we'd have to empty the gas tank by hand, which is quite messy. A guy at the repair shop helped us out with a hand pump, emptying the gas tank into a large plastic tub. The stuff we pumped out of the tank was neither pinkish, such as petrol, or clear, like diesel oil, but a milky, opaque orange. It didn't smell right either, but almost sweet like turpentine. Yeah. The repair guy commented that the fluid looked like something called wartime gasoline. Apparently, during World War II, petrol was scarce and an alternative was needed. The solution produced by a crudely refined fuel oil mixed with turpentine, on which old petrol engines could be run. The guy asked us where we had got the gas, and we told him, chuckling about the strange gas station. Even added that we never noticed it before. Now, I really expected the guy, who was really familiar with the area, to laugh along with us and tell us all about the strange old guy we'd met. Instead, he looked totally confused and said something like, "What gas station?" And it was like a bubble had burst.
Weird. By the way, and I look like a floating head.
Our daughter, the floating head.
I float away. Goodbye now.
All right. So that was a rather long one. We've got some shorter ones, and I've got my favorite at the end.
Now we got 68 comments.
Oh my goodness. So let's see what's going on real quick in the comments.
Look, just put your finger all in the
I
camera.
know. Come on, chat. And then so Sykes says, was the strange old guy drunk? I don't know.
Probably. Baby Shark.
Baby Shark. And we're not going to start singing that. Do, 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 do. And then John says gasoline used to be very different. Wonder how a modern car would run on it. Apparently not very well. Yes, Otis. He waved his hands in the air like he just don't care. Hi, Jennifer. Oh, and hi, Sykes. Oh, my goodness. Hi, Stephanie. How are you? Okay, all right. And look, my thumb was right back there again. My goodness. Okay, so this one is a little bit different, but I still found it fascinating. And a lot of these come from overseas. So this one starts out, first of all, English isn't my first language, so I get a little confused sometimes. This happened to me yesterday. I went for a walk and saw saw a woman riding a bike. I live up a hill and she was struggling to get to the top. I took a good look at her because I thought she looked like a former coworker of mine. I walked downhill on the direction this woman had come from. When I get to the middle of the hill, I see the same woman going uphill on her bike. Same face, same clothes, same everything. I keep walking, and there are some people exercising in the street. I passed a woman running. Then I saw the same woman walking on the other side of the street. It happened again. Different woman, same thing. I thought it was funny and that it was a glitch and I should post it here. So what do you think about that one?
Glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah, definitely a glitch in the Matrix.
Watched that movie a couple of days ago.
Did you? Yeah. All right, let's see. Oh, this is a good one. This is kind of creepy. Let's see. We'll read this one and then we'll stop for a commercial break.
But the thing is, I think time shifts are like this makeup. Time shift takes your gas, but this makeup takes your energy. I was very.
Well, it was like my foot. I think my foot experienced quantum entanglement last night. Either that or somebody or something was trying to kill me.
You just wake up to screaming and your foot's
yeah, I've been living around all day long.
No, like it's like a portal and you're.
Well, my
just
foot's gone.
No, it's just like a foot there and.
Where did this random foot come from? You're leaving it laying all over the place. Let's see. Kisa says, let's see, hot dog and bologna. All right, so this is a good one. This one's kind of creepy. If this is the one I'm thinking about. Yeah, this is it. This story takes place in the mid-90s, a time before widely used cell phones and GPS. My two best friends and I, freshly able to drive, decided we would head out on a Saturday to a water park in southern Missouri, about a 3-hour drive from our hometown in northwest Arkansas. So beware, there seems to be a dimensional vortex somewhere between Missouri and Arkansas. We had never been before and just used road maps to get there. We had a pretty fantastic time, but as the sun started to reach the tree line, we thought we ought to head home. It's about 7 o'clock and we miss a turn, but my friend Paul, who was navigating, said not to worry, another turn was coming up that would get us where we needed to go just as fast. The next turn took us from detoured to completely lost. By 8 o'clock, we were on a road that seemed to be lacking any informational road signs and zero lights. We finally see a gas station and are relieved to get some directions as well as some gas. My friend Taylor and I go inside while Paul pumps the gas. We come inside, and a friendly old man in his early 60s who gives us a very large grin and says, "Well, hello there." It was very foghorn leghornish. Looked like an extreme hillbilly, but very pleasant. We explained that we were needing gas and wanted to fill up. He explained that he was about to shut down for the night, but would be happy to oblige us. He then said something I'll never forget. "You have to make haste, though. Tonight is buffer night."
What the heck is that?
No. Taylor and I looked at each other and shared an awkward look. We asked him if he could point out our location on the road map. While he was finding it, two people entered the shop from the back and called out for the old man. He said he was up front. The two approached us, a man and a woman, and at first looked confused, as though hit with an epiphany, and then they smiled. They asked the old man, "Are these the guests tonight?" He shot them a look and said, "No, these are some lost children." The way he said children caused the hairs on the back of my neck to stand up. Not sure why. They looked at us and said, "The three of you should make haste because tonight is buffer night." Two things scared the crap out of me right then. The first being, how did they know about Paul pumping gas out front when they came in from the back? The second being that they repeated the very same line the old man used by verbatim. We clarified the directions to get back on the main highway and paid for the gas without waiting for change. Taylor and I booked it out of the gas station to find Paul already in the passenger seat. When we got into the car, we were nearly airborne from the speed we took off from. Before we could say anything, Paul told us about how three men from across the street stood under a tree just watching him. He waved, but they didn't move a muscle. We drove as fast as we could until we got back on the highway. To this day, I will still have a nightmare every so often about that gas station and what my imagination has twisted into what buffer night could have been.
By the way, this cat is perfect because I am living on her. You can barely see her face, but she's just perfect.
So what do you think about that one?
Cool. And Momo says it's weird.
Momo says it's weird. Momo's weird. So, all right. So we're going to stop for a quick station identification, and then we'll be back and take a look at the comments.
Yeah.
This is Mr. Applewhite speaking. Do not attempt to adjust your device. There is nothing wrong with it. I am here to deliver a message. Join Psycho Bunny Death Cult in our anti-censorship campaign. Free your mind. Free your head.
And we're back. So let's see
Hi.
what's going on in the comments real quick. And I'm going to try to use my other finger.
Just don't stick your finger in other people's faces.
Don't stick your finger in other people's faces.
Why you sound like a child when your mom.
Let's see. Come on, chat. All right. So John says it sounded like they stumbled onto a cult of some kind.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Very creepy. And Nikisa says, never recall going through a portal from Arkansas to Branson, Missouri. Just make sure you fill up. And then Otis says, great show so far. Yes, a little bit. Stopping at gas stations gets you missing. Yeah, so Otis says, and this is interesting, another story about gas stations. For some odd reason, gas stations, and one of my favorite, which I've got at the very end, involves gas stations. I guess because they're wayward points, maybe?
Maybe it takes gas to go into a time.
I don't know. I don't know. But it is very ironic how, in a lot of cases, they are gas stations. Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
Mother,
We just about lost it. Okay, so let's get on. So we've got a couple of stories here. So, all right. So this is a pretty good one. Many years ago, myself and two of my best friends decided to go for a day of mountain biking at Snowshoe in southern West Virginia.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Now this was way before, again, the days of GPS. So we were kind of doing this by some half-butted directions and old maps. But the point is, we got very lost. Sometime along the way, we ended up in this very tiny little town. We figured we would ask for directions. But it was absolutely deserted. I'm talking about not a single soul to be seen anywhere. We parked the truck and split up looking for anyone. Now, this was around 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning, so not exactly the crack of dawn, mind you. We went into the post office, nobody. We went into the only bar in town, which was unlocked, unattended, with music playing, but not a single soul present.
Oh no.
Yeah.
They were snapped out of existence.
I don't know. We went business to business to business and walked the streets for about 25 minutes, finally finding an old man who seemed to appear out of nowhere in the middle of town, walking alone. The first question we asked him wasn't even for directions. It was, where in the heck is everyone? To which he replied, well, I guess folks around here don't get up much till around noon. We asked him for directions to Snowshoe, and he pointed to the road we came in on and said to go that way for about 10 miles and make a right, and we will find the interstate. We left quickly. We had all had a very bad sense of unease about the whole thing. As we left, we were about 5 miles down the road and hit a lady, not like virtually hit a lady, but ran up on a lady, dressed up in a state road uniform, standing in the middle of a very long straightaway, holding a stop sign. When we approached her, she turned the sign from slow to stop. We asked what was going on. She stated there was road construction ahead. We told her of what just happened, and she kind of laughed and said, those people in that town are kind of strange, but let it slide. So we actually started talking to her, waiting for a line of traffic to come by from the opposite direction. We actually ended up talking to her for about 45 minutes to an hour. Just, talking. Kind of got lost up in the conversation. Not one single vehicle ever approached from the other direction or behind us. Eventually she said, well, I guess it's clear now, and y'all can go ahead. And slowly turned the sign from stop to slow and motioned for us to go ahead. We went straight ahead, the only direction you could possibly go, for the next 30 or so odd miles. and didn't see any signs of construction, state workers, or maintenance going on at all. Matter of fact, she had no vehicle, and we just figured she was a flag woman dropped off by some crew up ahead. After the encounter with the town and this woman, we had enough and called it quits. We turned onto the interstate as soon as we found it and headed north home. Every single one of us still remembers this whole encounter very vividly in detail to this day.
It really sucks to. What happens if someone gets stuck in a time shift?
That's happened. There's stories about that's happened, and it's truly terrifying.
What happens if you get stuck in there forever? There could have been like millions and millions of cases of time shifts, and probably like maybe like 5% of them never came out.
Well, I didn't get it. I didn't get it in this one because it was just a really, really long story. But there was one about a lady that basically just woke up one morning. I mean, isn't this a pleasant thought when you fall asleep? Woke up one morning and her whole life was different. She had a job with the same company, but it was in a different department. Her bosses were different. People knew her. Her apartment was laid out differently. Her
body swap.
Decor was different. Her husband did not exist and never had. And this has gone on for years. Unless it's some sort of medical amnesia, she basically, woke up in a completely different dimension. And now, could she have switched bodies with, I mean, you start getting into quantum theory and stuff like that, and they say, that there's multiple yous in multiple timelines. So could she have switched consciousness with another her?
Maybe she died in her sleep and switched consciousness to another one.
Maybe. It's really creepy. It's really, really creepy. Okay, let's see. This one is called The Vanishing Road.
That sounds pleasant.
Doesn't it sound pleasant? So about 4 years ago, I lived in this fairly small.
May I say
yes.
What happens? It vanishes right as you're on.
Well, that would really suck.
like it's like a bridge.
That would really suck. And I do have one in here, I do believe, that is kind of sort of like that. These are just they're very unnerving. I mean, if you really start thinking about some of these stories.
Yeah, it really sucks.
Yeah, I would be scared of getting stuck. I think that would be my biggest fear. Okay. About 4 years ago, I lived in this fairly small fly speck of a town. At the time, I had lived there for about 12 years, so I knew my way around. Our house was about 1.5 miles away from the nearest neighborhood. Our mom intentionally picked that house due to the lack of neighbors. It was tucked away on a back road with the woods surrounding it. Every now and again, I'd like to take walks with my little brother, who at the time was about 13. We decided to do just that. We headed up. Where did it go? Hang on, guys. Let's see.
No, the glitch in the Matrix.
There was a glitch in the Matrix. Good Lord. Now you're going to have me freaking out. Okay, here we go. All right, so he was about 13. We decided to do just that. We headed up the road and decided to try to find a new path or a new clearing that we hadn't discovered yet. And most kids do that. So that's kind of part of being a kid. When we noticed,
stuff.
Do what?
Discovering stuff.
Exactly, discovering stuff.
And getting hurt.
Sometimes. When we noticed something a little shocking, just off the road that led almost directly to the neighborhood, there was a brand new paved road. Every road in that part of town was gravel. So seeing an out-of-place paved road was pretty unusual. We stared at it for a while and came to the conclusion that it must have been made within the last few days, due to the modern but slow growth of the town. However, we had no explanation for how they did it so fast. We decided to explore a little bit more. I remember as soon as we set foot on the road, the air became noticeably cooler. by about 5 degrees. The road itself was black pavement, but no dividing lines. It was surrounded by some thick red trees that resembled redwoods, but they were too short and non-native to our state, which again is southern Arkansas. There's something going on in Arkansas. We walked on the road for about 3 miles until we decided to head back due to it getting dark. When we got off the road, we felt the temperature go back up. My brother and I agreed to explore it the next day. At roughly noon the following day, we set back out to explore this place, only to discover that the entire road was now missing. When I say missing, I mean the trees that were cleared to make it had apparently grown back, with no sign of the redwood-like trees. We even began to explore the woods once more, but only to find no sign that it ever existed. When we asked our parents about it, they said they knew nothing about any new road work being done near us.
Weird.
So what would you do in a situation like that?
I try to avoid situations like
I try to avoid situations like that. All right, let's see what's going on in the comments real quick.
27 comments. Instead of comments.
Hi, is it Darly? Hi, Darly. So Liz says, can two of yourselves exist in the same space or timeline? There was a story that I was going to read, Liz, that actually had something to do with that, but it was a little bit different than what we were talking about tonight. I've always heard it would cause some sort of, yes, like some sort of time paradox, kind of, sort of like what Donnie Darko is based on, kind of. But it's a good question. And then John says, if any of these weird things happened, I'd run home to bed and hope to wake up normal in the morning. Yeah, I think that the whole fact of what would happen if you got stuck there is really what creeps me out. And the fact that it's like with these quantum entanglements, there's something not quite right. Like it's just off. Like the odd trees or the people that tend to act very bizarre or mechanical.
It's a different reality. No joke, it would be off.
Yeah, I guess it just reminds me of something like you would see in the old, the Twilight movie, or the Twilight Zone movie, is kind of what it would remind me of, as far as just the bizarre behavior of some of these people that I guess continually exist in these places.
I also had a mini heart attack at like 5 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like I had my hand behind my chair and I felt something like wet, and I felt, and it was a cat's face. I had
a cat's nose.
Yes, I about had a mini heart attack. Oh my god! Oh no, the aliens are back.
Oh no! All right, so here's the next one, because let's see, we've got about 15 more minutes. I want to get through these. So we used to own a racetrack in Ohio years ago. That would be fun, wouldn't it? But we lived in southeast PA. You had to take the turnpike to get there in any reasonable amount of time. And one of these times, my mother, my sister, and I were together to go meet my stepdad, who was driving separately with a trailer to haul the equipment. And this one is a little bit different than the quantum entanglements, but I thought it was a fun story. We got off at an exit after paying a toll and go off onto an area that has a strip mall with a bunch of rinky-dink looking buildings. Not dirty, just faded pastel colors.
So weird.
Didn't even, huh?
So weird.
Yeah, kind of weird. Didn't even look like there was a town nearby. They had a diner, though, and we hadn't eaten since we left. So we stopped in. The food sucked. It was completely tasteless. People stared at us the whole time. It wasn't dark like a cave, just not a ton of windows.
It's like if you put a filter.
Yeah, like a filter. There was some enough for ambient light, like a Denny's if the power went out, that sort of thing.
Never been there, but okay.
Well, like a Waffle House, sort of.
Whatever.
And an unreasonable number of people we noticed had bandages on them.
Weird.
The only person who said a word to us was the girl who took our order, who rang us up at the end. We decided not eating was better than going back there. So we wrote down the exit in a little journal we keep in the glove compartment so that we know not to make the same mistakes again.
It's like this road's better, has better food, and this road sucks.
Right, like this restaurant was good, but this one wasn't. A
Look
couple,
at it.
yeah, a couple of hours later, we get to the track, and my stepdad asked how everything went. We said it was uneventful, but told him we'd recorded a real whopper for the journal and not to take the exit we'd marked because it was awful. The food was awful. He gets really excited, and we're all kind of wondering why. He actually said the words before that he hated eating. It takes too much time and gets in the way of me living my life. So our less than stellar review definitely wasn't a motivating factor. He tells us he thinks we ate ghost food and that the people in the diner were vampires.
Oh, that wouldn't. Nope. No.
He wouldn't stop talking about it for like 10 minutes, and it was making my sister
I
uncomfortable.
can see why.
Yeah. So my mom did an about face and tried to logic him away from the conversation. We argued that the food had no reason to suck. They could just have easily killed us, and nobody could recall ever seeing the movie where the wound left by whatever bit the person to make them vampires in the first place still existed on their bodies. He got less excited and left it alone. So basically, they just got sarcastic with him. We have the race weekend. It's time to drive all the way back. He asked me if I want to come with him since he had to drive alone the way back. I said, sure. 2 hours in, he pulls off. I think it's weird because we had a really big breakfast before we left. And I know he's like all into anti-eating. I didn't recognize it at first coming from the other direction, but eventually it occurred to me, he's going to stop at that diner. He wants to see it for himself. He stops to pay the toll, doesn't mention our story. He asks if there's a diner at the next exit to make sure he has the right one. The guy says in the toll booth, there was one, but it burned down. Holy crap. Okay, so they weren't vampires, but what a coincidence. We just ate there, and then right after, in the span of 2.5 days, they have a freaking accident. This almost intrigues him more than the supernatural bit, and I'm 100% on board for checking it out. We drive over the same humdrum strip mall, except where we went to eat, it's just this charred mess. No vehicles, no tape. And they've cleaned the area up around it pretty well. Yeah. We go to get back on the turnpike, and these poor toll guys that are stuck in the booths, hardly bigger than they are. So it's the same guy when we come back through. Anyway, my stepdad's like, I thought you said there was a diner there. The guy says, there was. Like I told you, it burned down. He asked if they'd figured out yet what caused it. Was it a grease fire or what? What kind of thing? The guy says, yet. And my dad says, yeah, it had to have been in the last 2 or 3 days. They didn't investigate it. It wasn't on the news. Then the guy says, "Oh, we know what happened. It was on the news 8 years ago."
Oh wow, that wasn't. It was less like a time shift, more like a
time slip. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Let's. We're going to read that. This is kind of what you were saying about if the road were kind of ended, sort of.
No. I mean, what I was saying is, what happens? It vanished right as you were driving. Like if you go into a portal,
So in other words,
and the road wasn't built
and then all of a
yet.
sudden you run into trees.
No. Like if it was a bridge and you just go through the portal. Oh no.
Oh yeah, that would suck. That would suck.
Nope.
This one is like a portal closes behind you, sort of. This is called The Highway to the Past. In 1988, Strange Magazine published a story which they claimed was based on true events that took place on October 20th of 1969. Two business associates were traveling from a small town in Louisiana towards Lafayette along the almost traffic-free highway of Highway 167. At some point, they noticed a retro-looking turtleback type car ahead of them, which had license plates with the year 1940 on it.
Hey man, I think your license plate expired.
Exactly. What they observed when they shortened the distance between the cars was that the woman behind the wheel also dressed in 1940 style clothing.
I remember you telling me this one.
Yes. Driving alongside the vintage car, they could see there was a small girl on the passenger seat next to her, and the woman had an expression of horrific panic written on her face. They gestured to her to pull over so that they could help her. She nodded approvingly and began the maneuver. The two businessmen passed slowly by her, but when they halted on the side of the road and turned to look at the other vehicle, it was nowhere to be seen. The car with the scared woman and the child had simply vanished into thin air. The story has an even more mysterious and bizarre twist ending. Some newspapers from the 1940s reported the bizarre disappearance of a mother and her child. What if they're still wandering in and out of various time warps without any hope of finding their way out?
That would really suck.
That would be awful. That would be terrible.
Why? Maybe how would you star for it?
I don't know. I don't know if time would move the same. Like it could feel like 15 minutes.
Hey, or maybe the time stopped, but you're still going.
It could. Because time is, man is the one that makes up time. So, all right, let's see what's going on real quick. And then we're on the last story, which is my favorite. Oh, sorry.
They look, there's a turtle on the road. Maybe what happens if a turtle gets stuck in a time warp?
I don't know. Could he tell anybody? I don't know.
Just keep walking, to be like, what the heck?
It is
happening?
Terrifying, Otis. It's absolutely terrifying. You do need a flux capacitor, John. That might get you out of that. Bad food, no eat. Rebecca says he's one of them. He sure did seem excited about it, didn't he? Cold. And so John says maybe if you go a certain speed at a certain place, it triggers portals. Who knows? And scientists, I mean, as far-fetched as it sounds, when you start getting into like quantum mechanics and quantum theory and things like that, there are a lot of scientists that are starting to think that it may be plausible, a little less like time travel. Us as man can't do that yet, but maybe nature can. So yeah, 88 miles per hour. There you go. That's when the flux capacitor kicks in. All right, so my favorite one, and this comes from Expanded, what's the name of that podcast? Expanded, what's the name of it? My mind is gone blank. Perspectives, expanded perspectives. And this is a good one. Okay.
Never heard of them, but okay.
It's one that I listened to.
You're the only one in this house who
posted.
listens to podcasts.
This is a good one, though. Listen up. So back when I was a Border Patrol agent, I was sent out of El Paso, Texas, to bring back a trailer full of equipment in the middle of January. My partner Dave and I were on duty, but not in uniform since we had to load and unload the trailer ourselves. We stashed our pistols in our bags. We left El Paso en route for San Antonio and then Laredo. As the sun was going down, about halfway between Fort Stockton and Sheffield, we were running low on gas. So we looked for a station. Not much out there. On the side of the road, we saw a sign that said, gas station, right before an exit. I pulled off I-10 and onto the feeder, which went up a hill and over an overpass. There was no side road, only one way to go. Once we were on the other side of I-10, the road became narrow, just about one vehicle wide, and it was in really bad shape. Pulling the trailer, we had nowhere to turn around, so we stayed on the road, hoping the gas station was getting close. The road dead-ended in the parking lot of a store. It looked like something out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There were two pumps with a bulb hanging down at the end of an electric cord. These were old-style pumps, with the number dials and no pay at the pump available. If not for the gas gauge sitting on empty, I would have turned around and left. Dave said he'd fill up when I were to go in and pay. I walked into the building, opened the door, stepped through, and froze. My hand automatically went to the spot where my holster should have been if I had been in uniform. Inside the store were 5 or 6 men, mostly in overalls, sitting in folding chairs around an old black and white TV. The volume was way down, and the picture looked as if it was in need of a better antenna.
Sounds suspicious. I don't like it.
Yes. They all stared at me without so much as a word. Behind the counter was a skinny guy dressed only in jeans, no shirt, no shoes. He was missing way too many teeth.
Nope.
I looked at the guys around the TV, and then at the guy behind the counter, and then back at the guys at the TV. I felt as if they were sizing me up for some nasty event in the near future. That small voice in the back of your head that tries to save you from time to time suggested I should leave.
And I would listen to that and
I handed the guy behind the counter the government credit card and told him I wanted to fill up the truck. He took the card and looked at it as if he didn't know what it was. Next, he reached under the counter and pulled out one of those old-style credit card machines. You know, the kind you ran back and forth to make an imprint of the raised numbers on the card. He had to look around for the right forms to place in the machine. Just as he was handing me the receipt, Dave came through the door. He froze, and I saw his hand go to the spot where his holster should have been. He backed out of the door, and I followed him as quick as I could without running.
You sound like you had a brain fart.
Once back on I-10, we talked about what we had just seen and what we thought we had run into. We talked it over all the way to San Antonio. A couple of years later, my wife had to go to San Diego. So as we were driving on I-10, we passed Sheffield, and I began looking for the exit. There was nothing even remotely like the overpass we had used that night. When I got home, I looked on MapQuest and Google Earth, but could find no trace of the overpass, the road, or the gas station, as if it never existed.
Spoopy.
Very spoopy.
Now look at the comments.
Very spoopy. Yeah, so let's look at the comment.
Hold up,
And
I got it. So you don't
okay, you got it. Okay.
know that.
All right. Yes, yes. You could hear banjos playing outside of that place. Well, thank you, Rebecca. So Rebecca says good show, even though I came in too late. No, we always like having you here. And then Darley says spirits are in everything around us.
Oh,
Yeah. And Jennifer says great show tonight. Nice to meet you, odd daughter. Hope everyone has a good night.
that's been forever since I've been on here.
And then Terry Basut, I hope I said that correctly, Terry.
Looks like a bunch of
First time
different-
viewer, enjoying the paranormal stories. I think your mask and makeup are top notch. Well, thank you. Thank you. We're here just about every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next week is week number 4, so we will be dark next week. So we do 3 weeks on, 1 week off, like most podcasts. But definitely come back and see us, Terry.
Tonight I actually did my makeup for once.
Yes, you did. You did a very good job.
It's gonna be hard.
And Darley says there are portals everywhere. And then Kisa says, I bet there's many portals in Texas. Well, Texas is a big place. When they do things, they do it big. Yes, they live. Put your glasses on. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed tonight. We thought this would be fun, just something a little relaxed. Not quite as, frou-frou as my last 2 have been, but this was fun. And I was glad to have you back with me, odd daughter.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Wasn't it the Christmas special?
Yeah,
that was
it was the
last
Christmas
time?
special was the last
So
one.
another guest was on too.
Yeah. So, but we won't be here next Wednesday. We'll be back the following Wednesday after that. We do have some schedule changes coming up, but we'll let everybody know on the upcoming shows and things like that that'll be going on for the rest of the week. Stay tuned. I do believe that Frank and Liz with Roots Bleed Red are going to be finishing out the Black Dahlia series tonight. I do believe. So we will see you guys later. Pleasant nightmares, everyone, and have a wonderful weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
It's that time, kids. Hold on to your heads. Join Psychomantium 13. Each week for thrills, chills, and a horrific good time. Don't lose your head. Join Psychomantium 13 and enter the weird.
This is Mr. Applewhite speaking. There is nothing wrong with your device. Join me here on Psycho Bunny DC. A delightfully dreadful consternation of horror content